So you're thinking about becoming a taxi driver. Buckle up, because we're diving deep into the world of taxi driving with some seriously insightful resources.
Yeah. What are we looking at?
RoleCatcher, they've got this awesome career guide and even an interview guide specifically for taxi drivers.
I've heard of them. They're pretty comprehensive.
Right. And I was really surprised by how deep they go into the world of taxi driving, you know? It's not just about driving, it's about like providing a service and running your own mini business almost.
It is really interesting how they highlight that service aspect right from the start.
Yeah.
In fact, they actually say that taxi drivers are often the first and last impression visitors have of a city.
Wow. That's true. You really are the face of the city in a lot of ways, huh?
You are. Big responsibility,
It is. It puts a whole new spin on things. You're not
Yeah.
just getting someone from point A to point B, you're shaping their whole perception of the city.
Exactly. And that feeds right into the guide's emphasis on customer service skills and even business management.
I noticed that too.
They talk about looking after customers, collecting fares, even managing vehicle servicing.
Wow.
It's way more than just driving.
Okay, so we're seeing it's way more than driving. But what about the actual work environment?
Oh, for sure. Yeah,
The guide mentions there's a lot of variety there too.
absolutely.
Yeah.
And this is something you, as a potential taxi driver, really need to consider.
Mm-hmm.
You could be in the middle of a crazy busy city or cruising through quieter suburban streets.
Right, totally different vibes.
Total opposite. And then there's the choice of working for a company with a dispatch system or being independent, striking out on your own.
So many options to think about.
Lots to consider.
And the guide doesn't shy away from the physical demands either, like long hours behind the wheel, potentially lifting heavy luggage.
Yeah, the conditions section is pretty straightforward about it. This job, you need stamina.
Right, for sure.
Speaking of adapting, how are you with technology?
Oh, that's a good question.
The industry's changing so fast. Online bookings, GPS, electronic payments. It's not like just hailing a cab on the street corner anymore.
You have to be pretty tech savvy these
It's
days.
a whole new ball game.
It is. In fact, the guide mentions how GPS isn't just about finding addresses anymore.
Oh, really?
Yeah, skilled drivers actually use it to optimize routes and avoid traffic, and even find points of interest that passengers might enjoy.
Wow.
It's impressive.
It's like going the extra mile, literally and figuratively.
Exactly.
Now, speaking of going the extra mile, let's talk industry trends.
Mm-hmm.
The guide paints a pretty positive picture overall.
Yeah, it does. It talks about this boom in the private passenger transportation industry, mainly because of growing urban populations and, more people needing rides, more opportunities for drivers.
Which is good news if you're looking at this long term.
Right.
But, going back to what was said about the work environment, the strength of those trends really depends on where you are,
Location, location, location.
Exactly. A bustling city is going to have way higher demand than, say, a small town.
Right. And you also have to think about the impact of ride-sharing apps.
Oh, yeah, that's a whole other layer.
Definitely something to research further.
Mm-hmm.
But before we get into all of that, let's get back to the core of being a taxi driver. The guide lists some pretty enticing pros.
Yeah, there are some good ones in there.
Flexible hours, potential for high earnings, especially with tips,
Tips, yes.
meeting new people, all walks of life.
Absolutely.
And, the independence and autonomy of being your own boss, potentially.
Appealing.
Very appealing, but, gotta weigh those against the cons, right?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Long and irregular hours, unpredictable income, the risk that comes with driving.
Mm-hmm. That's a big one.
Big one. The guide's very upfront about that high risk of accidents.
Yeah.
And then, of course, the dreaded difficult passenger.
Oh, yeah. I bet you've got some stories about that.
I can only imagine.
Oh, believe me, I've heard some wild ones.
Hmm.
But we'll delve into the guide's strategies for managing those situations a bit later. For now, let's not downplay the physical demands and safety concerns.
Right. Absolutely.
Those are really important factors to think about.
They are. So we've covered a lot already. We see that being a taxi driver is way more than just driving. It's customer service, it's business smarts, resilience, all of that. But the guide goes even deeper. It outlines these different stages of a taxi driver's career.
Oh, yeah, the career stages, right.
Right.
What I really like is that for each stage, they give you these example profiles.
Oh, interesting. Tell me more about that.
It's like taking a peek into the lives of actual taxi drivers.
Oh, cool.
And seeing how those roles evolve over time.
Okay.
So you're not just reading a list of tasks, you're seeing them play out,
That sounds fascinating. I'm definitely eager to hear more about those career stages and example profiles.
Let's get into it. All right, so let's dig into these career stages. This is where it gets really interesting for anyone thinking about this as a career. Remember, we're talking entry-level, experienced, senior, and expert.
And I'm ready to hear about those example profiles. Seeing those tasks in a real-world example, that's way more helpful than just a list.
Absolutely. So much more relatable.
Yeah.
So entry-level, right?
Mm-hmm.
The guide paints this picture of someone just starting out, mastering the basics,
Okay.
greeting passengers professionally, keeping the vehicle clean and maintained, navigating safely, handling those fares correctly, all the traffic laws, of course.
Sounds pretty straightforward, but I bet there's a steep learning curve those first few months.
Oh, for sure, especially in a busy city.
Right.
And the example profile really highlights that. It's a driver focused on giving great customer service, always putting safety first, learning the ropes, handling the fares, keeping the car clean, making sure passengers feel good, safe, and they even mentioned getting positive feedback.
Oh, that's great. It shows you can make a positive impact right away.
Exactly. Start building that reputation early on.
Okay, so what about the experienced taxi driver stage? What changes there?
Well, responsibilities grow. The expectations are higher. It's not just about doing the basics anymore.
Right.
It's about consistently providing a high level of service.
Okay.
So they're focused on that top-notch customer service, navigating efficiently, maintaining a comfortable, clean vehicle, smooth cash transactions, and even handling customer complaints effectively.
Oh, handling complaints. That sounds like a whole other skill set.
It is, but we're talking about experienced drivers now.
Hmm?
They've been doing this a while. They've honed those communication skills, and they've learned how to handle those tricky situations. The example they give is a driver known for being reliable and trustworthy.
Oh, that's great.
They've got their own loyal customer base because people know they can count on them.
That's like building your own brand as a taxi driver.
It is. It's cool, right?
It is cool. So entry level, mastering the basics, experienced, building that reputation. What's next? Senior taxi driver.
You got it. At the senior level, you start taking on more leadership roles. It's not just driving anymore. You're mentoring new drivers.
Yeah.
Sharing your knowledge, your experience. You're handling those really complex customer issues, keeping detailed records, collaborating with dispatchers, even suggesting improvements to the whole operation.
So it's a real step up in terms of responsibility.
It is. And the example profile for this stage, it really highlights that leadership. It's someone who's not just a good driver, but a mentor, a problem solver. They're shaping the company culture, helping new drivers find their feet.
That's amazing. It shows there's real room to grow in this career. You start as a driver and you can end up a leader, a mentor.
You can.
Oh.
Okay, last but not least, the expert taxi driver. What does it take to get to the top?
I'm all ears.
Think of someone who's not just a driver, but a true expert on everything taxi. Deep understanding of the industry rules and regulations. A go-to for advice. Constantly trying to make customers happier. Meticulous about their vehicle, safety, collaborating with management on training, policy development, the whole 9 yards.
The ultimate taxi driver?
They are the one everyone looks up to.
Wow, that's impressive. And the example profile for that expert taxi driver, it's really something.
It is, right.
They're passionate about the industry, dedicated to excellence, always trying to innovate.
It really changes how you see taxi drivers. It's not just a job. It can be a fulfilling career, tons of growth potential.
This whole breakdown of the career stages is really eye-opening. There's a clear path for advancement. You can start by learning the basics, but with experience and dedication, you can become a true expert.
And that's a key takeaway for you, the listener. Don't underestimate what you can do in this career. It's not just about driving. It's about providing a service, connecting with people, and always learning and growing.
Now, earlier we mentioned the interview process, and I think we need to dedicate some time to that.
Oh, absolutely.
Because RoleCatcher's interview guide, it's packed with helpful advice,
It is. Landing that taxi driver job, it takes more than just driving skills.
Right.
You got to articulate your experience, impress those interviewers.
Exactly. So let's switch gears from career stages and focus on those interview questions. I'm sure our listeners are dying to know how to handle those tricky situations, really impress potential employers.
Let's do it.
All right, so let's dive into that interview guide from RoleCatcher. Landing that taxi driver job, it's about more than just driving skills, right? You got to know how to nail that interview.
Oh, absolutely. You got to impress those interviewers, show them why you're the best person for the job, and that's where this interview guide really shines. It's got insightful questions, sample answers, even tips on what those interviewers are looking for.
It's like a cheat sheet for your interview. You go in prepared, confident.
Exactly. So let's jump into a classic question they always ask taxi drivers. How do you handle difficult passengers? Everyone who's taken a taxi, driven one, has a story about a tough passenger.
Oh, yeah, you're bound to encounter some interesting personalities out on the road. So how do you show them you can handle the situations, professionally and with grace?
Well, the guide really emphasizes active listening. It's about actually hearing what the passenger is saying, even if they're not being reasonable.
Right, trying to understand their perspective.
Exactly. And then clear communication, speaking calmly, respectfully, even if the passenger isn't.
So you're setting the tone for a more positive interaction.
Exactly. Staying calm and composed.
What if it escalates, though? Becomes a safety issue.
The guide talks about that too.
Yeah.
Knowing when to disengage, prioritizing your safety, and getting help if you need it.
Right, safety first.
Always.
Okay, so we've talked about those tricky interpersonal situations. What about questions that test your problem-solving skills on the road?
Oh, they love those. Here's one. What do you do if you hit a traffic jam or an unexpected road closure? It's all about seeing how you think on your feet, how you adapt.
Makes sense, because traffic, it's unpredictable. And those road closures, always at the worst time.
Exactly. And the guide says interviewers, they want to see someone who stays calm under pressure.
Cool.
Quickly assess the situation, finds alternate routes, but doesn't stress the passenger out.
Right, it's not just about knowing the city streets, it's being resourceful, using your GPS, maybe even having some backup routes in mind.
Right. Showing you're a problem solver, you think ahead.
Those are great skills to have no matter what you do, but especially important for a taxi driver.
Absolutely. Now, beyond those situational questions, they also cover the basics, like your driving history, your knowledge of the city,
Right.
your availability, your customer service approach, all that.
It's like a complete rundown of what they want to know.
It is. And the best part is, for every question, they give you insights into what the interviewer is really looking for.
Oh, I see.
They provide sample answers, so you can highlight your strengths, avoid common mistakes.
That's so helpful. You get a glimpse into the interviewer's mind.
Yeah.
And practical guidance on how to answer.
Exactly. And RoleCatcher, they don't stop there. They've got AI feedback on your answers, even video practice.
Wow, they really cover all the bases.
You do.
Well, I think we've really explored the world of being a taxi driver.
Yeah, we've covered a lot.
We talked about customer service, business skills, dealing with those difficult passengers, navigating unexpected road closures. We even looked at the career path, going from entry level to that expert level.
Lots to think about.
It is a lot, and hopefully you, the listener, feel more informed and ready to decide if this is the right career for you.
That's the goal.
Because remember, being a taxi driver, it's not just driving. It's connecting with people, providing that important service, navigating the ever-changing world of transportation.
And as technology keeps advancing, who knows what the future holds for taxi drivers?
Right, maybe self-driving taxis are the next big thing, but you'll always need that human touch.
That's a good point.
That's something to think about as we wrap up our deep dive. The world of transportation is always changing. Who knows what exciting opportunities are out there? Thanks for listening.